We decided to make this video because people call me that are wanting to bring a horse to get trained, and they ask what my method is or how I start colts, and I really have a hard time explaining it because basically every horse that we start is different. I don't really have a way specifically that I start each colt. So depending on how the horse is, we do what we have to do to get them saddled and get them started riding as fast as we can. I like to get on them as early as possible, and but I don't want to push them to where it's not safe. The most important thing is that I want to be as gentle as possible, but as firm as necessary, and get on the horse as soon as they're ready. And that varies so much from horse to horse. It could be, I've had horses that people brought to me that had never had a halter on, and in 2 hours I was stepping on them. And I've had horses that people have petted their whole life since they were a baby, and we didn't get on them for 5 or 6 days because they weren't ready. So it just really varies on each horse, and we just do what we have to do to try and give them the best experience possible and get them going as good as we can. I do have some theories on how to make them the best they can be, I guess, is the goal. We get them saddled, and I don't know, maybe some people think we don't spend enough time doing groundwork, but I figure in 30 days of training, they're probably going to get saddled 25 times and brushed 25 times, and it ends up being quite a bit of groundwork at the end. It's just that we want to get on them and ride them in the first day or two if we can, and that way we're riding them too. I've found that everything goes a lot smoother after you've been on them, and I also want to ride them in a halter for a while until them horses learn to just kind of relax and move off without me pulling on them, and kind of move in their natural gait, and I try to direct them right and left, but pull on them as little as possible until they learn to kind of move naturally and carry my weight. I try to be a passenger with as little guidance as possible, and try not to scare them, basically. Like I'll get on them with a rope on a halter and hold the rope with one hand and the saddle horn with the other hand, and that way if he goes to jump or spook, I'm not pulling on his face with both hands and scaring him more and teaching him not to stop. I can pull him around one way if I have to, which is pretty black and white for the horse. Left means left, right means right. And I find that when you start pulling on both sides too early, they start leaning on it, and they learn not to stop when you pull and stuff like that. So I kind of have a method that I think helps me have a good end product, that I'm working towards an end goal. I find that if we spend too much time on the ground and get them to where they're bomb-proof, basically, before you get on them, then you get on them and they won't move. You kick them and whatever, and they stand there because they've been taught to stand there, and then you can't get them to move off, which is, I really want them to be able to move off with the least amount of pressure. I don't really want to have to kick a colt and make him more scared. So I kind of just feel them out, and when I think I can get on them without them bucking and they'll move off, then I climb on them, like I said, everything's different. Just depends on the horse and what they can handle. This yellow horse came, I think I saddled him on the third day. He was halter broke, and he had been petted and grained a lot, and he really had little respect for people. You could lead him around, but he would spook from other things and jump on top of me. So I spent some time on the ground moving him around and just getting him to where I thought when I saddled him that he wouldn't blow up and jump on me. I had to gain a little bit of respect that way, where some horses that are wild and never been handled, they're just trying to get away from you anyway, and actually I think are a lot safer to be around than some that are not scared of you. I think fear and respect are one and the same at a point. But anyway, this bay horse, he's a stud that I'm started. He's a 2-year-old stud, and he's probably been here 10 days or maybe 2 weeks. I don't remember for sure, but anyway, so I've started riding him in a snaffle bit. I probably rode him 5 or 6 days in a halter, but made him pack a snaffle bit to where he'd get to where he could hold it up on his tongue, and was used to packing it, not playing with it too much, keeping his tongue under the bit. And I think that in the future, before I start pulling on that bit, I want them to be comfortable with it in their mouth, and that way they've learned to hold it up on their tongue and hold on to it, keep their mouth closed, and things like that, to where when we do go to pulling on it, they're not going to be as scared, I guess, is the bottom line. I'll tie their head around before I get on them with a snaffle, and make sure they're given to it and doing things right, and then I'll start riding them in a snaffle bit, and I kind of start the same way. The first few rides in a snaffle, I'll hold on to the horn with one hand and put, just the left rein, and just pull them left for a while, and then switch hands and just pull them right, and get them to learning left and right, and then back up. And I try to get them to back up before I ever try to stop them. We get them stopped by pulling on one rein, and then we ask them to back up. And like this stud colt here, it looks like I'm pulling on him and he's going forward, but that's not really the case. He's trying to hide behind the bridle like some studs do. I'm not pulling on him. That's where he's trying to carry his head. He thinks he's hiding from me down there, and I'm having to beat on him a little with my feet to get him, but I'm really not pulling him I'm still trying to get him to lope around there on a loose rein as much as I can. If anybody that knows stallions knows that they'll get round like that. Anyway, but now this little brown filly, she's a little cut and bred filly I started for some people here, and she's different too, because they had a couple of little girls that petted her for about 2 years before they brought her to me. And so the first day I saddled her, I couldn't even get her to move. She's pretty non-reactive to much, and we got on her the first day, and probably the first 3 or 4 days I had to have somebody else chase me around with a flag to get her to move. And so she's been a challenge in herself, and like I said, they all present different challenges. And sometimes if they're not scared enough, you got to kind of make them a little bit scared to respect you and go. And she's doing good now. She's doing better, and she's probably going to be fine. She's learning how to turn around and stop a little bit. And this is about 45 days on her, so she's a little further along than a lot of them others. But because of her breeding, she moves pretty good anyway, even though she was spoiled. And the same deal, that's how she wants to have her nose out, and she's going to carry that nose out there. And it's a little bit of attitude, but really for the first 60 days, all I care is that when I pull on them, they come to me and they respond. And other than that, I kind of let them carry their head how they naturally want to, unless I'm pulling on it. And like I said, left and right, and stop them, back up, and, get them moving off your leg and respecting it. But this paint horse, somebody put 30 days of groundwork on him before I got him. And I think when he was a long yearling, and he's kind of another case of he's been around more people than horses. And so I don't know, maybe he thought he was a person, but he was not scared of me, but he was scared of a lot of things. And he tried to jump on me a few times, and so we've had some other challenges with him, but he's doing good. This is another thing I do with these colts is I'll rope them off another horse and just move around them. We do this before we get on them the first ride. It gets a little bit of the starch out of them, and then they also, ultimately the goal is that you can walk over there and swing a rope over them and sit next to them on the other horse, and none of it really bothers them. And that way, when you go to pick up a rope on that horse, that they're not bothered by it because they've been used to it before you ever picked it up on them. And I'll rope their legs, and we'll rope them and stop them and go take the rope off and pet them, and just stuff like that to try to get them gentle and used to ropes around their legs. And we want them to respect the rope but not be scared of it. And so it's just kind of, every horse is different. Some of them it takes days of that, and some learn really fast, and it just depends on the horse. Like I say, they're all different, and they all respond different to everything. So when we train them, we basically, I really prefer to have a colt at least 60 days. 90 would be better. And the longer we have them and ride them, obviously the better they're going to be. But it just depends on the horse. This little bay horse, the first few times we saddled him, he showed us he could really buck, and he's pretty pouty, like he don't want to lead, and he pretty much just, when he would move, he'd buck, and the rest of the time he wouldn't move. So I got on him a couple of times, and he couldn't really get him to do much other than hop around or try to rub me off on the fence. So I decided we'd take a different approach and see if we could get better results, and it worked. Sometimes we'll get a bad one. Like I said, they're all different. Sometimes I'll get on them in a stall and ride them around in there if I think they're going to want to run off and crash into a fence, or we'll pull some panels off the wall and build a little round pen and do some round pen stuff with some of them. It just depends on the horse and what I think they need. And like I said, we just want to get the best results we can without hurting the horse or us getting hurt. That's the important thing. So this yellow horse, he ran around and bucked and got really tired, and he is just a 2-year-old, so even though he's big and stout, I didn't want to spend. I wanted to try to end on a good note, but and get off him before, he got over it. It's important that with these young horses, their attention spent, you keep their attention, and so kind of a little bit's a lot sometimes. But I thought that he had bucked so hard and for so long and to get used to it that he had got tired enough that I'd go ahead and take advantage of the fact that he was played out, and I'd go ahead and step on him and put the first ride on him when he was tired and maybe his brain was in the right spot. I didn't stay on him very long because, like I said, the attention span of these 2-year-olds, even if they're big, stout, and you think they can handle a lot, you got to keep a willing attitude in them, and you don't want to necessarily ride them into the ground. You just want them to have a good experience and find a good spot to quit. And so we got on him, went pretty good, and I thought, well, we'll call it a day.